Do Hi, welcome to Artistic Adventures. I'm Holly from BB Library, and today our artist is Jean-Michel Basquiat. And it was a change. I had decided to do someone else, but I was driving down past the Museum of Fine Arts and remembered that he is the featured artist at the Museum of Fine Arts at this time. So I thought it would be kind of good in case you get there that you have a little bit of a background in him. He's very interesting. He lived a short life. Very sadly, he died at 28, but in spite of that, he is probably one of the most important, influential artists in America. And not just in his artistic style, but he recently surpassed his great friend Andy Warhol in demand for his artwork. And in fact, I'll show you the picture. He just sold an artwork for $100 million, which is the most any American piece of art has ever been sold for. It's funny because Warhol, who was considered by all to be this absolutely fantastic artist, thought that Basquiat was a better artist than himself, not because he had more like artistic skill, but because of the power and the emotions and the message in his art. So he started out as a graffiti artist, and he was a friend of one of our others. So he was a great friend of Andy Warhol and also Keith Haring, who he met doing graffiti on the street when he was a teenager. He loved jazz and poetry, and in fact, he showed that great love in a lot of his works. There are just words spread around. You may not understand what they mean, but they meant something to him. So writing and the love of words also really kind of is part of his work. When he had his first exhibition in Los Angeles in 1983, completely sold out. So that shows kind of the power that people felt in his art. He drew inspiration for his art from his own life as a young black man, especially when living in New York City. And one thing that he expressed quite a bit was kind of a call against racism. He was kind of encouraged by the way Keith Haring did his work to show a lot of his things, like not showing pictures of exactly what he meant, but using symbols. And we'll look at one. The one that he used a lot was the crown. In fact, that's how I first met him, was because he was doing some book covers, was the use of this crown. And in that, it represented kind of like he thought of himself as a king, pride in himself, pride who he was, pride in his work. And he showed respect to other people by giving them a crown if he drew them. There's actually one person he looked up to a lot was Andy Warhol. And we'll see a picture when we look at pictures a little later of that. So he made thousands and thousands of paintings in his short life, inspired others to make art, and especially art that calls out any sort of, racism or bullying or not taking everybody seriously. And unlike many artists, in fact, it's surprising, great artists like Van Gogh did not make any money in his life. There were several of these artists that we think of now as being like the greats of art, died as paupers. Same with musicians. They just were not appreciated till after their death. Well, Basquiat is one who was heralded through his entire time, ever since he became massively important in the art world at the age of 20, which is really pretty young for an artist. Look at how old some of these other artists were before they were recognized. So let's read our book. It actually is a beautiful book that's called Radiant Child. And if you see the little sticker on here, anytime you see a sticker on the book, take a look at it. And since this is a picture book, take a look at its pictures. So Radiant Child, and it's written by Javaka Steptoe, who is a very fine artist. The work he did in here is not exactly Basquiat works. It is his kind of rendition of his works, and he does such a good job. It's beautiful. And look at that lovely picture of Jean-Michel, is his first name, Jean-Michel Basquiat. The T, his father was Haitian and his mother was Puerto Rican, and so the last name is pronounced in the French way, so it's just like without the T, Basquiat, Jean Michel. But I started to say Javaca Steptoe also comes from artistic and book writing royalty. His father, John Steptoe, is an amazing writer and amazing. I'm going to show you his picture because his father was also a very important person. So there he is, and he's a wonderful artist. So let's take a look at Radiant Child. All right, here we go. Radiant Child, the story of young artist Jean-Michel Basquiat by Javaca Steptoe, and it is published, there's a lovely picture right there. It is published by Little Brown and Company. And as I want to just read this at the beginning, like Jean-Michel Basquiat, I used bits of New York to create the artwork for this book. I painted on richly textured pieces of found wood harvested from discarded Brooklyn Museum exhibit material, the dumpsters of Brooklyn brownstones, and the streets of Greenwich Village and the Lower East Side. In this way, I invite my reader to create, using the materials, people, and places in their environment. While they may not find reproductions of actual Basquiat artwork in Radiant Child, they will find my original pieces that were inspired by him and interpretations of his paintings and designs. So there we go. In fact, we see right here that crown that Jean-Michel was so famous for. Somewhere in Brooklyn, between hearts that thump, double dutch, and hopscotch, and salty mouses that slurp sweet ice, a little boy dreams of being a famous artist. In his house, you can tell a serious artist dwell. He sits at a table with pencils scattered everywhere. Jean-Michel draws from morning until night with a serious face amid a storm of papers until he's created a masterpiece. At night, images enchant Jean-Michel's mind as he wakes from his dreams to add one more line. His drawings are not neat or clean, nor does he color inside the lines. They are sloppy, ugly, and sometimes weird, but somehow still beautiful. His art comes from his mother, Mathilde, a Puerto Rican woman, who designs and sews, cooks and cleans, and makes the house look like a stylish magazine. But most important, she lies on the floor and draws with Jean-Michel and his father on his father's old work papers. From her, he learns that art is not only the poetry books she reads to him or in the theaters or the museums they visit. Art is the street game of little children in our style and the words we speak. It is the messy patchwork of the city creates new meanings for ordinary things. While visiting the museum, they look at his favorite work of art. And this work of art is actually Guernica by Picasso. This is only in black and white. It is colored, and so it's one of his most famous, huge murals. Reading the story behind each artist, reading the story behind each work, this is how Jean-Michel learns what it means to be a famous artist. Back at home, he creates art on the floor as his father, Gerard, plays jazz records. Mama Mathilde cooks arroz con pollo and calls Jean-Michel mi amor. The energy and life of the city can be felt in each line of his drawing. As time goes by, Jean-Michel learns that art has a healing power. After a car accident, he's scared and confused. Mathilde gives him a book to calm his fears. It is filled with pictures of bones, skulls, and other body parts. Jean-Michel draws from it until he knows it all by heart. He's no longer afraid. In fact, the book that she gave him is a book that is called Gray's Anatomy, and it has all the parts of the body, all the bones, all the organs, everything about the human body in it. In fact, there's some pictures here, the spleen, the skull, the bone, the heart. Back at home, Jean-Michel's body heals, but his heart breaks. His mother is not well and the family breaks. She no longer lies on the floor and draws with Jean-Michel, but sits by the window, singing only to birds. Jean-Michel is confused and filled with terrible blues when Mathilde can no longer live at home. He tries drawing the terrible out of his blues, but things are not the same. As Jean-Michel grows, he visits his mother when he can, always brings his artwork to show, telling her that one day it will be in a museum when I am a famous artist. A teenager now, Jean-Michel decides, Papa, I will be very, very famous one day, with a sly look and a twinkle in his eye. Jean-Michel leaves Brooklyn for New York City, the Lower East Side, a concrete jungle where only the tough survive. I'm going to move my book just a little bit, and because we are, here we go, I'm going to move it out of the sun. There we go. During the day, dressed in a green jumpsuit splattered with paint, Jean-Michel stays with friends, sleeping on couches and floors, leaving a barrage of collages and poem-filled papers everywhere he goes. At night, Jean-Michel spray paints the walls downtown with poems and draws drawings that catch the eye of artists, gallery goers, and passerbys. Under the art, he signs the name Samu instead of Jean-Michel. Everybody wants to know who Samu is. Samu moves from street corners to art gallery walls with powerful color composition and line, collaging and painting on anything he can find. His art is still not neat or clean, and definitely not inside the lines, but somehow still beautiful. With his magical charm, Jean-Michel draws a crowd, but when it's time to work, he prefers to be alone with the radio and the TV on full blast. Now, in expensive suits splattered with paint, he flips through stacks of magazines and open books, and paints into the night, and sometimes for days at a time, while sounds and images jump into his head. Jean-Michel, an artist among artists, never doubts one line, creating from a soundtrack that is all his own. People describe him as radiant, wild, a genius child, but in his heart, he is king, so he draws a crown for himself and others that he admires. A grown man now, in the art world, with his art world in his hands, Jean-Michel still visits his mom when he can. And at his most important shows, above all the critics, fans, and artists he admires, the place of honor is his mother, a queen on a throne. He is now a famous artist. And that is our book. All right. Some pictures of Jean-Michel Basquiat and some of his work. So first of all, here's some pictures. In there it said that he now dresses in expensive clothes. He was very handsome and charismatic, and did do a lot of modeling for, you know, kind of designer clothing. So here's a picture of him in designer clothes, and look what he's done with it. And let's see, here's a couple other pictures of him. One with Keith Haring, who we looked at as another street artist, a graffiti artist, and one with his really good friend and mentor, Andy Warhol. And another thing about that, do you know how they met? Basquiat took to cutting some pictures of his into small pieces and selling them as postcards. And he was selling the postcards for like 10 bucks, and he brought some at a restaurant to Andy Warhol, and he was impressed, and they became friends. So there's that. And now some of his work. First of all, he did some book covers. The first place I ever saw his work, even though he was around a long time, was a book that's called Life Doesn't Frighten Me. And it's a poem by the great poet Maya Angelou, and he drew the artwork for it. and you look here on the cover of it, you can see one of his crowns over the dinosaur. And so that's the first place I ever saw that crown. He also he's done other books, and people have copied his style. There was a book maybe 3 years ago that won the Caldecott Award for Best Picture. That, oh my gosh, I can't remember the title of it, but it had it was about a boy getting a haircut, and I was thinking maybe it was called Crown. I don't remember, but that wasn't his drawing, but it took that image of the boy feeling like a king, you know, with a great haircut. And here's another one that is just the cover of another book. So he did quite a few book covers, excuse me, here. And here is one of his paintings that is called Boy and Dog in Johnny Pump. It's from 1982. Boy and Dog in Johnny Pump. A Johnny Pump just means a fire hydrant that they've opened up and let the water out for the kids to play in. And this one is the one that kind of topped all the prices. It sold for $100 million, this piece of work, fairly recently. And let's see, oh, the last thing I have is a quote of his. I'm gonna pick up my cheap paper here so I know what order I put things in. There's the last thing I put in, it was a quote of his that I just really love. And it's not who you are that holds you back. It's who you think you're not. So let's think about that. It's not who you are that holds you back. It's who you think you're not. So you could be the best artist in the world, but if you think you're not going to try. So it's pretty much just know who you are, know what you're good at, know what you want to do, and work at it, and not say, I can't do that, but give it a try. You could do it. So that's our course. I'm going to move my camera and I'll show you what we're going to be making. Okay, what we're going to be making is we are going to be making a crown, like Basquiat. What I used, this was actually, I made 2 of them out of a pizza box. So just some cardboard. The cardboard gives a good texture. In fact, I'm going to, and so you're going to use some paint. I've got some paint here. I've got some green. I've got some pink, but I'm only one color, and I'm just using you know, one of these big things for painting. You could use it works better because if you got a bigger area. If you use a little paintbrush, it doesn't work. The biggest brush you can find, or if not that, you could use your fingers or paper towels or anything else to paint. But I'm going to put paint right onto this. I'm using just some tempera paint that I found. It doesn't work great, but and to be honest, I don't care if those code things show through. So you're going to paint your crown, and this makes a good, when it dries, it makes a good medium for what we're going to do with it next. So you're going to use you need paint, you need something to draw on the top of it. I actually found like the perfect thing, but I suspect crayons would work pretty well on this, not so much markers, because we're going to color over the, oops, I'm starting to put pink into the green. I made one yesterday so that I'd have one that was done, but just put some paint on, let it dry, and I wouldn't go crazy covering everything up because it's perfectly fine that this backing shows through. I'm hoping this dries in time. I can play with this one with you, but I'm gonna put that back there to dry. I'm gonna put my paint away. So you're gonna just cut a crown out. You don't have to make it perfect. None of his stuff looked like it was perfect, but here's one that I painted yesterday. I just painted, but I love the way, if you look close, you can still see like the box was a little bit folded and how the paint went into the fold and the lines, and it isn't perfect. And now it's got some green paint on it, but that's okay. And what I'm gonna use is I just have a box of oil pastels that I found. They were just something I bought on the sale rack at Michael's a long time ago. So I don't need this. And then you're just gonna decorate your crown with whatever you use, crayons, these oil pastels, and whatever you feel. You can put words. You can, in fact, I'm gonna dump some of these out. They're really hard to get out of the box. now I can get to them. And you can just do whatever you wanted. I did go around with purple because I like the idea of there being a border, but other than that, I'm just gonna add some stuff to it. I bet this one would be pretty. Just anything that you feel like drawing on this. I kind of like squiggly circular shapes. I've got some green paint down here, so let me put some green up here. Add that to my green paint. And how about, just looking to see if there was a white. But you can just do whatever you would like with this. You know, it definitely, it's what you feel. But I'd like to write some words on mine. Let's see. I think, so I'm going to turn this around so it'll be upside down to you, but the right side for me. I'm going to write love, and I'm going to write these are not the best to write with for that sort of thing. He was another artist that liked to draw to music, which I think is really cool. I found a list of some of the things. I found a playlist of the music that he had among his records. It was everything from at the time at that time would have been the popular groups like the Talking Heads or David Bowie, to Beethoven, to jazz, old jazz, as well as new jazz. So I just think it's kind of interesting here, the way that so many artists are inspired by music. So what's your ripple show? Let's see. Here we go. So when you've got it decorated as much as you'd like, I can't find my paper punch, but so I'm just going to carefully poke a hole with a pair of scissors. I'm just going to put that in there, make sure it's not near my fingers. Let me do this on the other side, about the same level. There we go. And I found a roll of ribbon. Let me pick these up. Put these back in here. Get that out of the way. And I'm just going to cut a couple pieces of ribbon. And tie my ribbon. Here. And tie my ribbon onto my crown. So this is kind of our remembrance of Jean-Michel Basquiat. And again, there's an exhibit that will be in Boston about him if you're interested in finding out more. I think he's interesting. You know, he's somebody whose work to me, I think I like things that are more orderly, even among like the modern artists. You know, like I really like Pollock, but there's something about his that it almost looks just, I don't quite understand it, but I really appreciate who he was and what he worked for. So I thought that we should do that. And next week, I should tell you, will be my last of my art programs. I'll be doing something different in January that I'm still trying to decide. Although we were at the Dolbear School today, we had a Zoom meeting with the fourth graders, and there were a couple kids gave us some great ideas that I think people will like. So I'll be doing something different. Next week, our last one is an artist called Helen. Oh my gosh, I forgot her last name too. I'm getting old. Well, I have one more who is another un-American artist. So my crown is done. I can put it on. Let me put it on here before I turn the camera back. There we go. So I have my crown on. I purposely didn't really want it to wrap, but I wanted it to stick out like that. So it's kind of a fun project, just to be creative and come up with what you would like. And I remember my artist's name. It's Helen Frankenthaler is her name, and she is in a case of art is a very rare thing. It's a woman who is an abstract expressionist, like Jackson Pollock was, but she did something. She used a technique that was really, really cool to do her art, and that's why I wanted to do her, was to kind of show that not only are men abstract expressionists, but there were women, and her style was totally different than what Jackson Pollock's looked like. And really very beautiful. The colors are really beautiful. So we should have a really good time with her next week. Helen Frankenthaler. All right, so I'll see you next week, and I hope you have a great week. See you.